Good morning, everybody. It is January 31st, 2021, and I wanted to touch base with you on my fasting practices. I know originally when I was posting videos on YouTube, I was just getting into the high-fat protocol, a ketogenic-like style, also getting into Dr. Mindy's work for women when I had to recover my cycle because of too much fasting and exercise, which is, she has different protocols, but the one I had followed to recover was the Kebiotic, which is fasting specifically for women according to their hormones. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on my fasting practices currently. It is 2021. I started working on practicing fasting consistently at the end of 2017 and definitely into 2018 and 19. And things have been adjusted and so far. So basically when I originally started fasting, I started to get into the 14 hours, 15, 16 hours in a fasted state, clean fasted states. Did this before I started drinking black coffee, which definitely helped in 2018. But basically just slowly started to practice fasting. And my fasting practices have changed according to my fitness at the time, my goals, and things like that. And then, like I said, at the end of 2018, I had lost my cycle for almost 8 months, 6 to 8 months, because I was fasting too much and exercising too much, and I really jacked up my hormones. I really had to adjust my nutritional protocol, carbohydrate-based, and my fasting practices. So my fasting practices on average at that time were anywhere between 16.8 or 18.4. So I would fast for 16 hours. I would have a window, or I'd fast for 18 hours, sometimes 20 hours. And in these particular times, more so than not, I was also exercising in a fasted state, a clean fasted state. So just water and salt, or sorry, my boss D wants to play. Let's see here. Salt and water, or before I was doing coffee, tea. So I would just do tea, black tea or herbal teas, things like that. So, and then of course I played with fat fasting, where you would just add fat and no protein, fat and no carbs in a drink. I used MCT oil a lot. I'm not really using that right now. Right now I'm focusing on whole food fats, more like butter, ghee, coconut oil, coconut cream, thing like that. So again, I played around with different fasting times, fasting windows, exercising in the fasted state, not exercising in a fasted state, exercise in a fat fasted state, things like that. So I just want to kind of just give you the quick update on that. To recover my period, I had to quit fasting so long, so I had to go back to a circadian rhythm fast, which is like 13 to 14 hours. Do more of those carbohydrates, those whole food carbohydrates, to recover my period. Now, it took me, I'd lost it for 6 to 8 months. It took me about 3 to 4 months to regulate it to where it was coming on a regular basis again. And then once I did that, you know, when I get on the bike and I start doing more pedaling versus lifting, that adjusts fast, of course, that adjusts food intake and carbohydrate consumption, because that's important. I've tried doing the bike, being fat adapted, and it just was burning too much muscle. I could not. There's a thing, guys, yeah, and they say, oh, you know, maybe different for men than women, because women are women, not tiny men. We react different to fasting. So and having gone through this myself and jacking my hormones up and losing my period, I can kind of speak from experience. And again, I usually speak from experience. And everyone's experience is different, like I said. This is just me catching you up on my practice for fasting. So recovered that. So 2019, 2020, basically it was more like between 13 and 15 hours. Some days were a little bit longer. Some days I got up later. I ended up unconsciously fasting 16 hours or 18 hours, but not purposely like I was before. So it was more of a circadian style fasting for the last year and a half or so, and then more hardcore at the beginning. What I'm looking at now is, because I'm coming up having this hysterectomy, I am going to keep my ovaries, so I'm still going to cycle with hormones, but I'm not going to have a period, so I don't have to worry about a period being lost, because that is important for women. You need to have that. That's a sign, whether you're bleeding excessively or not properly, or your periods mess up. That's a sign of something's going on in your body and your body's trying to tell you. So pay attention to that, ladies. So I wanted to, again, getting prepared for this hysterectomy in going into 3 weeks towards the end of February. We're coming into the 1st of February tomorrow, so the end of February is when I'm going to have my hysterectomy. I wanted to update you what my current practice is and what I'm doing for the month of February for that, and probably a little bit post-op too. Post-op is going to be on, food is going to determine on how I feel, but there's definitely going to be fasting practices in there with some new supplements that I'm trying out to help with the healing and digestive rest in there. So I wanted to start this past week. So I wanted to practice this going into February. So I'm going to call February a fatty fast. So I'm trying to get my body to be a little more fat adapted again, to use nutritional, excuse me, to get nutritional ketosis, which is basically you're burning fat from the fat you intaked, and then it helps get your body a little more metabolically flexible and get you into more of a fat burning state. Not that I have tons of fat, but I did gain a little bit of extra weight over this past year, 2020, the shitstorm of 2020. Lack of movement and gym time and things like that. So I wanted to, again, incorporate fasting practices again and revisiting that and maybe extending my fast a little bit, but basically because I am still a woman and I still cycle hormones, maybe not go as rigid and strict and do more of a fat fast to extend my fast from a circadian style fast to a fat burning fast. And working out in a fat fasted state, dirty fast, what we call a dirty fast. And that basically means just having something in your coffee or tea that doesn't trigger a glucose response. Usually it's protein and usually it's carbohydrates. I have found, tracking my glucose over the past 3 years, 3 years-ish, that fat doesn't really trigger too much of a response for me personally. Definitely carbs do, and protein definitely does for me. If I do protein powders or protein in general, the glucose goes up, and that's just, it's normal, that happens. Glucose numbers have been really good lately, whether I'm eating more carbs or not, because I'm active. I've been more physically active, so those carbohydrates are being used as fuel. They're being shuttled into the muscles like you want them, into the cells, those things like that. So for February, to get myself adapted, it's going to take anywhere between 3 days and 7 days to be consistent with it. So I basically drove my fat up, my carbohydrates down, and kept my protein moderate. Kept my protein probably about half or a little more than half of what I was doing before. So it's anywhere between 70 grams and 100 grams of protein a day, to give you an idea. Sometimes a little more, maybe sometimes a little less. So basically the adjustment was dropping the carbs down and bringing the fat up. That's what you want to do. And you want to keep your protein moderate to low, and maybe even have days where your protein's even a little bit lower, to help with that autophagy, that cell cleanup, that recycling system, because that's, when you're in autophagy, that's basically your body's going after dead and senescent tissue, that's damaged cells, things like that, and get it out. But you got to make sure you do things also in your practice, eating fiber, to move things, having good bowel movements to move those toxins out of the body once they're released. So last week I basically decided, okay, we're going to prep myself going into February, and February is going to be more of a fasting month, not for weight loss. Again, this is just a prep for surgery, to get my body prepared for what's coming. Again, this is very important, and I have time to prepare, so this is part of my protocol, just changing my fasting protocol a little bit. I still fast every single day, bare minimum 12 hours. Even if it's a day where I'm only going 12 hours, it's 12 hours if I eat later or something like that. But basically, on average, my fasts were 13 to 15 hours. Now they're 16 to 18 hours. But that last hour and a half to 2 hours is dirty fasted or fat fasted, whatever you want to call it. So it's just extending that part of my clean fast. And then I'm either doing, just chores, or I'm working out in that fat fasted state. And I have found it pretty beneficial so far. I found that it's been extremely satiating. I ate way under my calorie count yesterday, even with a little bit of fitness. I was just full. I didn't want to have any more food, and that's what fat does. I definitely know if I eat 1,800 calories of mostly carbohydrates, I'm satisfied. I might get a little hungry versus eating 1,600 calories of fat where I'm like, I just don't want to touch anything. I don't want to snack. I don't want to do anything. There's a huge difference, guys. And until you've done this yourself, you don't know. You don't know unless you practice it, okay? It's a practice, and it's just keeping track of that. So I'm in a fat fasted state right now. I've had, today it was coconut oil and coconut cream, organic both, and coffee. Yesterday I had a couple of coffees. So I'm trying to get that fatty coffee or keto coffee, whatever you want to call it, if I'm working out, in the 200 to 300 calorie range. And that is part of my calorie counting, because I am still counting calories just to see where I'm at, and see how I feel according to those numbers and macro numbers. Today it was 1 cup of coffee with fat, a little less fat, so I had about less than 200 calories. And now I'm going to have a green powder. This is basically my vitamins and minerals. This is 1 scoop of green powder, my BCAAs, which is amino acids. It's matcha green tea. It's ashwagandha. There's adaptogenics in here. A little sparkling water. So this is what I'm going to break my fast with, because there's trace amounts of carbohydrates in here, of course. Anything that has calories is going to break your fast. But fat fasting actually extends the autophagy in the cell cleanup. So this is technically going to where I'm going to break my fast, okay? And I'm going to have a drink of this right now because I love this stuff. I miss it when I don't have it. All right. So for the month of February, 16 to 18 hours fat fasted, and still staying in that 13 to 15 hour clean fasted state. I'll be working out in a fat fasted protocol. The workout's going to depend on the schedule because I'm teaching classes for the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to build my schedule around that. So I'll just keep you guys updated. And if you want to try that, give it a whirl. If you, like I said, now that I'm not really concerned about having a period anymore, I'm currently probably going to be, I'm experiencing my last one at this point. I'm just going to continue to try and extend my fast. And that fat works really well for me. I find that I'm definitely fuller and more satiated with fat. Not that I just have to eat a ton of carbs, whole food carbs, and you just feel really gassy, you feel really bloated, you feel really uncomfortable. So there's so many different versions on what's best for you, and you need to find out what's best for you, because I've done it so many ways, and I hear so many, and I think, oh, maybe I was just eating a bunch of carbohydrates and take the fat out, and it just doesn't ever seem to work for me, guys. It's great for energy, it's great for when I'm on the bike, but I just don't feel good. Like, I feel like I'm constantly digesting, and my digestion has always been a problem, and even more so with my uterine fibroids and things like that. Just digestion, I just get bloated really easily. So eating a ton of fiber, eating a ton of whole food vegetables and starches just never seems to work out for me. I did it last year in the spring of 2020. I revisited it again in the beginning of January, and I just don't find it comfortable. I find that I digest lean protein really well. That's why I stick with chicken. And like I said, I only try to do that once a day, or salmon. My other sources of protein would be eggs. I haven't done those in a long time. I'm going to probably start reincorporating those because they're a great balance between fats and proteins. And again, it's going to be a lower carb type of a protocol. Definitely not calling this ketogenic. It's definitely a high fat protocol, where I'm still going to enjoy my carbohydrates, my whole grain breads, my oatmeal, my rice. You know, I might probably not do potatoes because I'm finding this is just experimentation, that nightshades are not my friend. Like potatoes and tomatoes, those are the two big nightshades, and peppers, like red peppers and things like that. Love them, love them, love them, love them, but I'm finding that I'm having a histamatic or lectin response to those. And it's I don't know if that was just overconsumption throughout the years or what it was, but I've definitely noticed that when I remove it, I feel better. When I add it, I don't feel good. Sometimes it's hives, I break out. Sometimes it's just poor digestion. I get sleepy, really lethargic. I just don't feel good. I feel good on fat. But I was so concerned when I lost my period that I had to kind of dial it back and started eating more carbohydrates, and just fought that balance between like a 40-30-30 or a 50-20-30, you know, just different macro balances that worked best for me. And depending on what I had going on in the day, stress-wise, fat is really good for helping protect your brain and your cells and things like that. Just, it helps. I can't describe it unless you do it. Just, you feel good. And then, of course, if you're doing a lot of processed carbs, that's a completely different story. So this is just my fasting update, guys. I know that's originally why I started doing my videos on YouTube, was fasting and a high-fat protocol. Again, I don't like to call keto or paleo or anything like that, or anything dogmatic like that. This is just me just upping my fat, decreasing my carbohydrates. Again, I'm going to keep my carbs anywhere between 100 and 150 net carbs. Throughout the entire month, there might be days where I have more carbs and less fat, and more fat and less carbs. So definitely yesterday I had a lot of fat, I had a little bit of carbs, and I felt amazing. I felt full. I quit eating around 3:30 yesterday, and I kept thinking, I'm gonna get hungry again. I'm gonna get hungry again. I'm gonna get hungry again. It's like, it's bedtime, and I was never hungry again. I didn't have to, I had just water the rest of the day after I had my big lunch. I had a late breakfast. I had fatty coffee, I had my greens powder, and then I had oats, and then I ate 2 meals yesterday outside of my fatty coffee and my green drink, which I try to do, again, 30 minutes before. So I do the fatty coffee, and then, that extends my fast. And then if I break my fast, I try to do this 30 minutes before a meal, like a heartier type of a meal. This gets in, it's absorbed super fast, your body's super clean, it's running at top notch right now. Very bioavailable, and gets into everything that it needs to get into quickly. Versus having a big meal and then drinking that, it's not going to be the same. So just practice that. We're going to fast February. Fasting February. So fat fast. You could pick different types of fasts. If you're a woman, you really need to do some research on that. Don't do any big, crazy long fasts unless it's like once a week or twice a week. But this is me practicing daily intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating, depending on what you want to call it. I've always called it IF, intermittent fasting. So it's just taking a time where you don't eat and then having a period where you do eat, and that just allows for cellular cleanup, recycling, digestion, gut rest, all of that benefits that comes with fasting. And there's different varieties and styles. Again, I don't know if if I'm doing any type of water fast or anything that I don't know that. I do know this is also going to help me prepare for my bowel prep the day before surgery, which is basically clear liquids. It's going to be a fast. It'll be a clear liquid fast, which is going to come from probably coconut water with salt, and broth, probably like a bone broth, which will have some protein in there. And then the surgery day, of course, there will be no food. I don't think I will have food that day. If I do, I plan on taking green powder. So this will be the first thing that when I feel good, besides water, that I'm going to hit, because it's going to give me nutrition. It's going to give me vitamins and minerals. It's going to get my body to start pushing those toxins out. And then if I'm in the hospital a couple days, I'm definitely going to have this, my protein powders, things like that. So there'll be some fasting practices as part of the surgery as well. And once you remove food, things that are harder to digest, fruit's not a good option because it's pretty easy to digest. But, oats and things like that. Once you remove that stuff, your body can start breaking down and detoxifying and healing faster. So we just remove some things so your body can heal faster and feel better a lot sooner. Okay, guys? So this is about 20 minutes. This probably is a little longer than I wanted to go, but you guys have an amazing day. This is Sunday. We're here in Michigan. It's pretty cold out today. And again, this is just me updating you on my fasting practices. Hopefully someone gets some information out of this and helps them along their way. No matter what your journey is, it's your journey. It's nobody else's journey. Don't force anyone else to join you in your journey. It doesn't work that way. You find your journey, you stick to your journey and be consistent with it. Because consistency is always the key, whether it's nutrition, whether it's health and wellness, whether it's your mental state, whether it's your nutritional protocol, whatever it is, it's your journey. And if people want to join the ride, that's fine, but don't don't push your thoughts and beliefs onto them. Let them join you willingly, and just find that consistency to find that balance and evolve, guys. You need to be flexible, metabolically flexible, physically flexible in the sense of just your routine, mentally, and spiritually, whatever that means for you. So have a great day, guys. Love you. Bye.